Thanks again for joining me. My name is Tim. This is Little Steps. You can reach me at howdoidothisone@yahoo.com. You will notice this is the third in the series. We're still doing the line tool and the properties. We are still dealing with the aforementioned layers. We have 5 layers on the canvas. We have the background layer, and we have 4 other layers on top of it. Now bear with me here and I'll show you this here really quickly by placing this over here so you can see what I'm looking at. Now I'm using the MS Paint window, so bear with me here. The reason I'm using this is simply to give you a visual of what I'm seeing on my screen. You can't see what I see on my screen, unfortunately, which is these layers, the fact that they're all marked as visible, and the fact that you can go in here and change these options. You've got to add a layer, delete a layer, duplicate a layer. You've got moving the layers up and down, and then you've got the layer properties. You can double click on that, or you can in fact hit your F4 key. That will in fact pull up the layer that you're working on and allow you to change the properties. Now, on top of changing things, the one thing I've emphasized in all my lessons from the very first lesson in the MS Paint program until today is not just working and learning the tools. You have to learn to save your work. Now, we're going to go through the steps of saving your work because, quite honestly, I think it's very important that you understand. First and foremost, in this program, when you save your work, you have several options to save your work. So let's go ahead and click on Save. Now you have the option on the Save menu to either save or save as. Saving is going to save it as whatever the title is. Saving as is going to allow you to change the properties within the limits or within the parameters of what it is the project looks like. Now let me demonstrate here. I can go up here to my documents. I can go to my pictures. Now we're working in pictures and I already have this set up here for my Paint.net lessons. But you will notice on this particular thing, I've chosen where to save it, which is my Paint.net lessons. The title is unsaved, but I'm going to put line lesson properties. Okay. Now the reason I'm doing this, it's absolutely critical that you see and you understand this. When you're saving your work in the Paint.net program, you will see down here Save as File Type. You have a Paint.net star.pdn. That simply means the file suffix, the last 3 digits of the file name, are going to be a Paint.net project. What this is going to allow you to do is it's going to allow you to save your project without losing the layers. Now what that means is, you can't see the layers here, but if you click on this, if I save it as anything other than a PDN file, in other words a Paint.net file, it's going to ask me to flatten. And if it asks me to flatten, what it's going to do is it's going to scrunch up all these layers and turn it into one layer in order to save it as an actual picture. Now there's a way to do this and a way to get around it. Now suppose I want to save this and I want to save it as a picture because I like this picture. It's cool, it's what I want, it's exactly what I've set up, and I want it to be saved as a picture. I'll click on Save, and then I will name it Arrows with Gradient. Now, arrows with a gradient. I want to save it in my documents, my pictures, and my paint lessons, my Paint.net lessons, and I want to change it to a PGN file. Now the reason I choose a PGN file There's different properties for each one of these, but the PGN file, if you look down here, you've got your paint.net, your bitmap file, your GIF, your JPEG, your PGN. The PGN allows you to have a transparency within the parameters of the picture. If you save it as a JPEG file or a BMP file, both of those files are different formats. The BMP file is good because Windows recognizes it and it's easy to put that in and use it as your desktop background. JPEGs are good for photographs, and it also is much more economical as far as space, how much space the file is going to take. However, it limits your ability to go back in and manipulate it and edit it later. Once you set something in JPEG, it's very compressed. The PNG file, however, doesn't compress it near as much, and it also allows for a transparency within the parameters of the picture, which means if I save something as a PGN file and I want it transparent, in other words, I found my picture but I don't want any background behind my picture, I just want my face and my upper torso. If I save it as a PGN file, it will allow me to go in, pull the picture back up, and it will show only the pixels that are colored. The clear background won't show. Now, let me illustrate that as well. Let me save this as arrows, and it's going to ask me to flatten it. Now, what you want to do is you want to go ahead and just allow it to auto-detect, and then click Save. It's already got the file name, but it's popped up here, flatten or cancel. You don't have a choice, you've got to flatten it. Now, once it flattens, you can't see this, so let me pull this up. Once it flattens it, boom. What you wind up with here is suddenly you have a picture that is a single layer. That's good for you if you want to save it and not work with the picture anymore. However, if you don't want to work with that or you want to change it later, once you've saved it as this file, you're stuck. So it's better to save it as a paint.net file. If you're going to work with it later and play with it, save it as a PDN file first. Make any mods or any changes you want, then you can save it as a PGN file, a JPEG file, or a bitmap file. Now you will notice I've done this. What you're looking at here is the Paint program once again, so let me minimize that. And within this Paint program, I've already saved this because it's already flattened it. However, going back to the keyboard shortcuts, if you hit your Control-Z, it'll pop it back up here. And once you've hit your Control-Z, it will pull these layers back out for you. It will undo the flattening process. Then you can go back in here and you can save your work. Now you can't see this, it's already reflattened, or it's unflattened itself. But if I go back in here now and as I save it, you'll notice the PDN file has not been saved under the paint.net. Now if I arrows with gradient and I click Save, now it's saved it, but it's also left all the properties and the layers intact. So I can go back in later, I can modify it, I can change it. Please be aware of this. If you save it as a paint.net file, as a project file, it will keep these layers. If you make a mistake, use your keyboard shortcuts to go back. Control-Z is the keyboard shortcut to undo the flattening process. Now that I've saved this, I can still go back in here and I can remove the layers. I can make them invisible. Anyway, continue to practice, and you'll notice here I've now made it transparent. Thanks again for watching, and please keep tuning in for my videos. Have a great day.